Hi, and welcome to Wednesday. I am so glad to be back. And before I get started, I need to thank everyone for all the prayers and the positive energy and the good wishes. I am and Ted are amazed at how generous you people are with all of that good stuff. I thank you. Thank you. I swear I'd still be in the hospital if it wasn't for you guys. I am going to talk about what I saw from the day I walked into the emergency room. And I have been in a lot of different hospitals over the years. This is not just this hospital that I was in. This is very, very typical of all hospitals. So, started, Ted drove me to the emergency room, went to the doctor's office. She said, go right to the hospital. So, went right to the hospital. He parked the truck and went to get me a wheelchair. And there was an ambulance there that had just pulled in before us, and the paramedic, the guy that was driving, jumped out of the ambulance, and he had a ghost attached to him. I thought, it starts. And went into the waiting room, went into the waiting room, and there were about 6 or 8 other people there waiting for care for various things wrong with them. But there was a little boy there, maybe 4 or 5 years old. And it looked like his earthbound grandfather was just hovering over him, so worried about him. So that was in there. There were 2 other spirits in there, but I don't believe they were attached to anybody else that were there. They might have just been emergency room ghosts, which is, again, very normal. There was an older woman that was earthbound. While we were sitting there waiting, the ambulance brought an older gentleman in, and he looked like maybe he had had a stroke or something like that. And it had to be his wife was just fretting over him. I mean, she was right. And of course, they took him back immediately. Got into the room, in the emergency room, and could see a young girl. I could see the nurse's station very easily from where my room was. I could see a young 30-ish looking earthbound woman. Died maybe in the 70s. She sort of looked like, she actually had bell bottoms on. The big bell bottoms. And she was around the people that were working on the computers back there, or one of the nurses or a doctor would walk over to a computer and do something and then walk away. But there were like 2 women that were always sitting there working on a computer. And I have to tell you, this girl, I have no idea what she was doing. But the one woman was like, it looked like she was ready to pull her hair out. That's how bad this ghost was messing with her computer. And so then I had to have x-rays, and there were no earthbound spirits in there. But then I had to have a CT scan, and there were 2 in the same room with me when I had that, a man and a woman. And you know that window that faces the machine where the man that runs the machine sits with the door closed? There was a ghost in there with him, a man. And again, I have no way of knowing because they don't know I could see them. And I certainly was not going to start talking to them. So I had no way of knowing if they were attached to somebody that worked in the hospital or if they just hung out in the hospital. While I was in the ER room waiting for a diagnosis and whatever, after there for 6-7 hours, There were a lot of earthbound spirits that were walking by. I could see ghosts just walking around, coming in with other patients. There was even a police officer that walked by with a terrible negative energy on him. So they finally decided to take me up to a room, and in the elevator going up to my room, there was an earthbound teenage boy, maybe 14. And as soon as the aide pushed the floor I was going to, the kid went over to the elevator and pushed every button above mine. And they all lit up. And the aide said to me, don't pay any mind to that. She says, nobody can figure out what's going on. She says, but these lights just go on and off, and nobody could figure out how or why. They've been doing it for about 6 months now, and no elevator has crashed. I'm thinking, well, that's really good. And she said, personally, she says, I think it's haunted. I just had to smile at that. I thought, yeah, you have no idea. Okay, so now I'm in a room, and I am... the whole wall is glass to the hallway, and they have a curtain on it, but you can still see through everything. And the shifts that they work at this particular hospital, which may be all hospitals, I don't know, was a 7 a.m. to a 7 p.m. shift, and then a 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. shift. So when I got in, I was still on the end of the 7 a.m., 7 p.m. shift, about a half hour. So the girl that came in and took my vitals and had me get into a gown, she had somebody attached to her. And 2 other nurses walked by, and there were ghosts attached to them. But then it was weird because the shift left and the new shift came in, and I never saw those 3 ghosts again. So apparently those ghosts were going back and forth with the nurses. And on the next shift, I only spotted 2 new earthbound spirits. Of course, I have to tell you, I was out of it most of the time. I think I lost like 9 days. I don't even know where they are. And so I don't know exactly everything that was going on. But I did notice that different staff had different earthbound spirits attached to them. So again, I could only think they're coming back and forth to work with them. And then there were new ones when they start bringing patients in too. I could see ghosts attached to some of the patients. By the end of my stay, I must have seen about 5 or 6 regular ghosts that were there all the time on all the shifts. So they just must have been hospital ghosts. The one gal that delivered food had one attached to her. The housekeeper had a young man attached to her, maybe 16 years old. That had to be her son. And why he was dead, of course, I have no idea, but he was definitely with his mom. One day, one of the workers, a really pretty gal, tiny, petite little girl, she had such a great tan, and I'm thinking to myself, she didn't get that tan from going to a salon someplace. That looked like the genuine thing. And she had a really cute guy attached to her, maybe 24. She was about 20, 22. Great body, great tan. He just followed her around everywhere she went. When she was in for the vitals, the blood pressure, the temps, the pulse, every time she came in, he was with her. He came in with her every time. And he was just so smitten with her. He just stared at her and smiled like he was pie-struck in the face. I mean, it was amazing. And so the one time she came in to take my vitals, I asked her how she had such a great tan when it was still snowing here. And she said she just got back from vacation and the beach was great, nice and warm. And I asked her, where did you go? And the earthbound guy said, Padre Island. And she said, Florida. And I asked her, I said, by any chance, was it Padre Island? And she just stared at me. She goes, how did you know that? And I said, good guess. I just wanted to see if the cutie was going to tell me the truth. Well, I did. And when I said that, he realized I could see and hear him. So he said to me, you can see me, can't you? I said, I just shook my head. And he said, how come? And I just shrugged, like, I don't know why, I just do. And he said he had died 3 years prior in a boating accident in Florida. And every time that he would just hang around with the pretty girls, his word babes. And when he got bored, he would go back to his family or Florida. I asked if he wanted to go to the light. He said no, he still liked hanging out with the girls. I had to smile. He said he didn't stay with any girl who was married or had a boyfriend. I guess he thought giving them no privacy didn't count. The day before I was released, one of the 7 p.m. nurses came in and said she wanted to ask me a question. I didn't have to answer if I didn't want to because of HIPAA. She said the security cop on first shift, this was apparently a part-time job for him. He actually was a patrol cop. That he knew who I was. Apparently a few years ago, I had cleared his house. And I didn't see him, or if I did, I didn't recognize him. The nurse said, are you that Marianne? And I said, sure, I was. And it was a good thing I was going home the next day. I knew I cleared at least 5 or 7 ghosts. And the one ghost that came in, she said to me, couldn't you send me to the light? I said, yes. And she says, there's a boy that I want to go find. Can I bring him back up here so that you can send him to the light too? I think he wants to see his grandma and grandpa. I said, sure. Guess what? It was Elevator Boy. And he walked in the room. He said, I saw you. I said, I saw you pushing those buttons too. And he said, don't push them. I only push the ones that are on top of the floor you had to go to. I never push all of them. And I says, well, that was very nice of you not to do that. And so I let him go too. Anytime I've ever had surgery or reasons for going into the hospital, I always took my quinceañera with me, because sleeping and tests and blood work and everything that goes on in a hospital, I do not want any earthbound spirits around me. But this was an emergency, right from the doctor's office to the hospital, and I don't carry a seed on me on a regular basis. There's no reason for me to. And so in the emergency room, when they said I had to stay, Ted had already gone to the car, and I would have asked him for his seed, because he does carry one, but I never even thought about it, to be honest with you. If I had had a quinceañera on me, I'm going to say that probably half of they would never have come in my room. They would never have been where I was having the CT. They wouldn't have been anywhere around me. But I didn't. And of course, because of the COVID, no visitors to any of the floors. So Ted couldn't even bring me a seat. So I just had to wing it. But this just gives you a good idea of what exactly goes on in hospitals. And I know that if I had been there longer, that I probably would have released a whole lot more ghosts. But I worked. probably I shouldn't have, but I just couldn't let those go stay the way they were. Again, let me thank you for the prayers, the good wishes, the thoughts. I so appreciated it. Antlers that had been canceled in Lorraine will be on May 1st. Information on my website. There's the Carousel Museum in June, will be on my website. The Zoom for this month is this Friday, the 16th. I think it's going to be only 20 people this time, and I don't know, maybe 1 or 2 spots are left. It's normally 30, but I'm just slowing it down a little bit. Obviously, I haven't done any work in my office for 2 weeks, so I'm even farther behind on getting back calls, but I will. And thanks so much again, and we'll do it next Wednesday. Have a great week.